because I'm not seeing. Barry, can you see if we are all present?
Yeah, we just lost Bob. I will call him right now.
Uh-oh, something happened to my screen.
And Katie Terry, somebody logged in as Katie Terry, is presenting their screen. If you could unpresent that.
Hi, Shauna. Is there a way to
Barry, if need be and we don't get a response about that, you can
oh, there it went.
There we go.
Okay, so I see John and Nancy and
Mona's online, and Chris is reaching out to Bob right now to to get him back here.
okay.
You say Nancy's there? I don't see Nancy.
Yes, she's there.
For everyone just joining us, we are going to begin our meeting as soon as we get all the board members hooked up again.
Bob, you will need to unmute yourself again.
And Michael, or logged in as Michael, if you wouldn't mind muting yourself. Pretty much everybody else is muted. That'll make it less likely for us to get background noise.
Can we get a sound check, Bob?
Hello.
Yep.
There we go.
Okay.
And then if you wouldn't, Chris had mentioned a technical thing he'd like to mention to participants.
I've noticed that with the board discussions, there's been some trouble with the lag, which is that you say something and it takes a while for somebody else to hear it, it seems like. And then if you speak in the interim, it just gets very confusing. So a couple of ways to deal with that. One is, these teleconference things don't work well with multiple people talking at the same time. So just focus on nodding or thumbs up if you want affirmative indicators that you're hearing the speaker instead of saying something verbally. The other thing is whenever I'm in meetings, I toggle mute off and on, and the shortcut keys are Control-D if you're on a Chromebook or PC, or Apple-D if you're on a Mac. And you just have to remember to unmute yourself when you're talking, but that can help a lot with it. The last thing, the behavioral one, is just if you find yourself stuck in something where you're saying, "Can you hear me?" and you're not getting a clear response back, it's helpful sometimes to just wait 5 seconds or something instead of half second, 1 second, etc. Hope that helps.
Okay, thank you very much, Chris. I appreciate that. And so we have done the roll call. Let it show that all board members are present. And the pledge. Should we do the pledge?
Yep, I'm ready to go with that. If you board members, if you wouldn't mind muting, then when you're talking or saying the pledge quietly, then when you're talking, you will you'll just hear my voice, because my voice is activating this camera. So there's the flag, and let's do the pledge. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Barry. Our mission statement: the mission of Mount Shasta Union School District is to promote a system of educational excellence, providing the opportunity for all students to become productive citizens and achieve high academic standards. We will start with our monthly reports. Certificated staff. I believe I saw Cheryl was here. MSETA.
Sorry, Kay. I thought you just said the monthly reports. I apologize.
Right.
So I think, we'll start as, I'm going to speak on behalf of myself, and I think probably MSCTA members in general will agree with most of what I'm going to say. But first of all, just thank you. Thank you for listening as a school board to our opinions and our concerns and our ideas from last Monday, and Barry and Kale for coordinating and conducting numerous opportunities for us to collaborate in the decision-making process, and to our parents and our community who support our efforts in many diverse ways. Back on July 17th, Governor Newsom pointed out we all prefer in-classroom instruction for the obvious reasons, but only if it can be done safely. And it is comforting to know that all of our stakeholders agree that that is our main priority, the safety of our students, our families, and our staff. And as you mentioned at your July 13th board meeting, some straightforward safety solutions could be considered. And I had that actually outlined. And it's thrilling to me to say that most of those have already been dealt with. Really, truly. So we have dealt with window screens at Sisson over windows, and now there's air ventilation. Another idea we might want to explore, if we need some ideas, are screen doors placed on classrooms that have an outside door. HEPA filters are being looked at, and those are, I would hope, simplistic and inexpensive measures for us to examine. Looking at creative ways to use our outdoor space is also being discussed, with either umbrellas or small tables or awnings. All of that is in the works and happening as we speak. We also know that the Office of Emergency Services via the county will be providing enough PPE for a couple of months. And Barry informed us the other day that temperature checks or some form of being able to examine and look at temperatures will also be available. And also potentially looking at some hand washing stations for maybe inside, maybe portable and inexpensive. All of that aside, though, we're just hoping that we can follow the CDC, and we already know we are. And the California Department of Health and the governor's mandates and its protocol and the county measures. So in the very safest way possible, we can begin to slowly, in a very controlled and methodical manner, open our schools again. And we all know that learning, as the governor also said, is non-negotiable, and neither is safety. And I think the teachers would agree with this statement. Again, this could be personally from me. We realize that there are a myriad of educational institutions that are available to our community. And it's our hope that by maximizing the safety of our families and our community's parents, our parents will elect to continue allowing us the privilege of teaching their children. And once again, thank you, Barry, the school board, the parents.
Thank you, Cheryl. Really, really appreciate that thorough report. That really is helpful. Classified and CSEA, Linda?
Good evening, everyone. Cheryl always does such an excellent job that sometimes it's hard for me to inform you of anything new. I can just let you know that I just completed a virtual, and Camille was also part of it, a virtual CSEA annual conference where we do our union's business. But they also have excellent trainings that they provide for us. And this year, because of it being virtual, I'll be able to bring it back to our chapter members. So I'm really looking forward to being able to do that. Of course, all of our members are, we're glad that Barry involves us in the decision making. And we just, like Cheryl says, we just all want to make sure we're safe, but we're all really missing having our kids with us. In fact, I find sometimes it's fun to go to the grocery store because occasionally I get to see a couple of the students that I've gotten to work with in the past, my past 30 years of being at the school. So I do know a lot of kids, and I do miss them. So I'm just hoping we can, and I know I don't have to hope because I know we will all work on this together and be able to come back and have our students and have our safety all guaranteed. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Linda. And Kale, principal's report?
Okay, I just want to start off with just a huge thanks to our maintenance and custodial staff. They're working extremely hard this summer to get the schools ready, and every time I come in, they're just making huge progress. So huge thanks to those guys. And then under AIM 1, students will reach high standards. AIM 2, safe and a drug-free learning environment. AIM 3, schools will operate efficiently and effectively. It all kind of ties together, but been in the district. This is going on my 10th year, and it's a great place to work. But over the past 2.5, 3 weeks, I've been extremely impressed with just a collaborative process with all of our stakeholders as we're trying to figure out how we're going to be reopening schools. And I know that there are people that want their kids back, full time. They're going to hear about schools that are doing that. I truly believe we're making the best decision with the plan that Barry has to kind of puts us in the middle to fall back and move forward. But it's been very impressive to tune in to all of the meetings, to have, our certificated staff, which is our teachers, our classified staff, which is our TAs, custodial maintenance, our parent meetings. So we've had a lot of stakeholders involved, and you've heard Cheryl say it, and you heard Linda say it. We'll be back together. We'll have all the kids on campus. It may not be as fast as some of them. Some of them want the process to occur, but just trust in us. We're going to work together to figure out what's best, and it'll work out for the best. So just have faith in us. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Kale. And Barry, superintendent's and principal's report?
Not much to report since last week, except to say a huge thank you to everybody who's taken their time, from parents to staff members, to join me in these collaborative efforts to get where we are tonight as far as with this 4-step reopening plan that we'll present to the board later on. So again, thank you so much. There have been a lot of hours put into this from staff members, parents giving of their time, especially right before dinner time. So definitely very much appreciated. You may hear this in public comment from some of the staff, but this came up. I wanted to at least put this in the board members' ears of what I'm hearing from staff, that potentially the teachers at least may be working on a letter to the editor that really encourages safety. That's as much as I'll say. I'll let the teachers expand on that if they so choose in public comment. But that's out there. I promised I would mention that. And then also there's also the thought of potentially as kind of a public service announcement campaign where posters and things maybe put around businesses or around town, encouraging the community to make safe choices with washing hands, wearing masks, physically distance, so we can be more likely to be in person sooner rather than later. So just two things there that have bubbled up that I've heard about that you may hear more about in public comment, and that's all I had.
Well, thank you very much. Good communication is really crucial right now, so I appreciate that. Moving on to item number 2, public hearing. We have a public hearing of salary and benefit negotiations with CSEA, Chapter 720. And let it show that we open it up for comments at 7:16. Any comments?
No comments in the chat either, Kay.
Okay, great. I was just trying to make sure we allowed enough time with our delays and lags. Okay, so no comments. Let it show that we have closed the comment session at 7:17 p.m. And at this time, we have item number 2.
Kay,
Yes.
I think that Stacy wanted to make a comment.
She's in there.
Sorry to jump in there, but during the
Thank you.
public comment thing,
That
she said
was-
public
I
comment.
think-
This is the public hearing comment, not the
Okay.
public, not item number 3.
Okay, great, thanks.
Uh-huh. So, public comments. At this time, we would like to invite and welcome persons wishing to address the board on any item on or not on the agenda to do so. You may choose to comment on regular agenda items now or when each item is open for public comment later in the meeting. In the interest of order and time, presentations from the public are limited to 3 minutes per person per topic with a limit of 20 minutes per topic. Before I open it up to public comment, I have had a board member approach me on the amount of time this has taken and the length of the public comments. And I want to clarify how I've been handling it and my rationale, but then I would like to hear from the board as to how they want to move forward during this time where we have crucial decisions. I've been operating that this is an unusual time, that we have unusual stressors that and concerns that people are facing. Potentially, we're going to be making life and death decisions. Unfortunately, people are fearful. They feel the need to be heard. I agree, they need to be heard. We are trying to build a team. We've heard everyone talking about the parents and our TAs and our certificated staff, our secretaries, our administration staff, and the board. We need to have all stakeholders feel that they've been heard. So that's why I've been leaving it more not so tight on the 3 minute or the 20 minutes per topic. But I would like to hear from the board members how you would like to handle this. Mona?
I'm thinking that I agree with you, Kay, and I think this is a very challenging time right now, and I also want to hear from people. And I remember the first month that when I was a board member was with the cannabis issue, and I believe, Kay, that you had allowed like 45 minutes for that topic. I don't know if that's too much time, but maybe we can set a time like you did then.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
And Nancy?
Yeah, I'm interested in hearing from as many people as possible, so I would like to adhere to the 3 minutes and maybe share the points across people.
And what about the 20 minutes per topic?
I'm less worried about that. I'm not sure how to manage that. I would like that. We have 87 people on this call. I would love a chance for a really good discussion.
John?
Yeah, I want to maintain the 3 minutes. That has been a tradition in this district. It helps retain decorum. It gets people to say what they're truly concerned about in a short amount of time. Keep it brief. Don't go on and on and on. And after we do 20 minutes, we can, on the topic, we could reevaluate that and decide if we want to extend it for maybe another 5, 10, 15 minutes or something like that.
Bob? I don't know if he has dropped off or not. Okay.
Gave you a thumbs up.
Okay, Bob is
Okay.
here, but he's muted again. So
Okay.
Bob, you have to unmute yourself.
Also, that I would also encourage that people not just be completely repetitive, telling us the same thing over and over. Very briefly, if you agree with what someone would say, you can just simply say that you concur with what so-and-so said, and keep it very brief.
I agree.
So how does this sound that we go for it? Bob? Yes.
I agree with John. What John said, I agree with that.
With what John said, okay. So how about we do 3 minutes then at 20 minutes, we will reevaluate and see if Barry, if you could be the timekeeper and keep comments to about 3 minutes. And if you could give maybe a wave so they know that they have 20 seconds left.
I will. They may not be able to see me. I'm going to go ahead and write down 7:42 as the time that we will then reevaluate. So you can go ahead and open it up for public comment.
Okay.
I would start first with the chat. It looks like Stacy Laub asked for public comment at the first.
Okay, so I will open it up to public comment to begin with Stacy.
Hi, thank you so much, everybody, for allowing me this opportunity to talk, and also for involving everybody so much in this process to reopen. We, the teachers, obviously are very anxious to get back to work. We miss the kids, we miss our jobs. And so last week, several of us got together and wrote a letter to the editor of the newspaper, just asking for support in the community, saying that we need the help of the entire community to be able to get back to something resembling normal. And just encouraging everybody to follow CDC and state guidelines in terms of social distancing and wearing masks and so forth. And in addition to the letter to the editor that many of us worked on, Angela Blazard has volunteered to kind of spearhead a public information campaign, maybe having posters around town done by kids saying, you know, wear your mask, follow social distancing, because we all want to get back to school. So I just wanted to share that with the board, and I really thank you for the opportunity to do so. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Stacy.
Next is Brandy McKnight was asking comments regarding that item, or all public comments are now. So I think we paused for Brandy McKnight to see if she had a comment to make.
Yeah, I did, Barry. Thank you. And again, quickly, I also appreciate all of the opportunities for parents to join and get information. And I do want to acknowledge that this is totally unprecedented. I don't envy, you know, you guys trying to come up with a plan, and that there's more than just the student safety to discuss. There's also the staff. However, due to timeframes, I'm going to go ahead and just speak to, you know, I feel like I have to advocate for my personal kids and my family. And I feel that with the nationwide and county rates of the COVID-19 in children, specifically in our county, are both extremely low. The hospitalization or the hospital, capacity right now, I want to say I checked the website on the state, and it showed that we were at somewhere around 65% available hospital capacity. I'm sure there's a delay in that. I tried to get information directly from the county and could not reach them today. And Barry, I know you've heard me say this a couple times, but I think it's important. You know, we have to conduct a risk-benefit analysis, and I think the risks of our kids not being in school is much greater than the risk of them going to school. And I think that we can take the safety of the staff into account and come up with ideas around that. And I just think that, you know, some specific concerns I would have, again, personally, is bandwidth. So if I have 2 kids attending streaming school daily, I also work from home. So if that doesn't work out, guess who suffers? My kids. I mean, my job's going to have to come first. Other families who have 2 full-time working parents, they're just going to hope that their kids are logging in when they're supposed to. And then I also feel like the family dynamic is going to shift drastically, because you're going to be trying to pick up in the evening, what traditionally has happened during the day. And these are important long-term effects, right, on our kids. So I don't know. I just think it's important. It's my understanding, based on the plan, that we would be opening full distance learning. I don't know if that was stated or if the parents have had a chance to look at that. And I just want to say that I personally am a proponent for the hybrid option that we had talked about sooner. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, Brandy. Appreciate that.
We have Karen R. Asking how you get in the lineup to speak. That was perfect. You can go ahead and type your name in, but Karen R. Would be up. Karen R.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great, thank you. It's Karen Rogers. I am a guardian of a special needs 8-year-old who's my grandson, who's been in the school for a few years and was finally thriving and at borderline ASD, really showing his brightness, intelligence, and just doing great with in Jackie Duplashane's class and with support from the various staff. I'm here to agree with the former speaker that there's an extreme risk to keeping children out of school. Masking them is dangerous, in my view, to their health and has not been studied. And I did send a video of people who are showing what happens to children's oxygen levels and carbon dioxide levels with a mask. And I believe that could be a form of abuse, actually, that we can't do if we haven't really seen studies that it doesn't harm them. Social distancing for kids is antithetical to their development of peer relationships. So we need to get some sort of form that those who are passionate about the children and life is a risk. I've read some statistics that say that getting in the car to drive to school or to work, there's a chance a certain number of people will die every day. From the science news that I'm studying, and I'm happy to share some of that, all-cause mortality on the planet is not up. But there are alternative news sources that are being censored that are very educational. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and his website, Children's Health Defense, is wonderful. He fights for children's health and absolutely advocates no masks. So please find some sort of waiver I'm 65, and I believe we've had COVID come through our community already. Many of my peers and people in the medical profession and schools have suggested that. I think we need to face life courageously and look at our numbers that are very low. The risk for children is low. There's things we can do to improve our immunity, and we do need to get through this, but I think that the harm that we're causing could be severe and long-term. I see depression in the kids, sadness, inability to play with other children, and I'm just very concerned about the psychological thing of the distancing and masks. So I'm all for living life, building our immunity, looking at alternative science, epidemiologists, immunologists, and virologists that are not on our mainstream news, I'm afraid to say, but are there. And, I don't agree with a new normal. It's a new nightmare, and we need to get back to beyond the nightmare and into. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Karen. Appreciate your comments. Next.
Thank you.
Barry?
Next, we have Lydia Einfeld posted a link and mentions American Association of Pediatricians. Lydia, if you would like to speak, go ahead. Hang on, she's getting ready.
I wasn't expecting to be called on. Thank you. First of all, yeah, that's a great article. I read the whole thing, particularly the parts about special education, students with disabilities, behavioral health and emotional support for children and adolescents, and then also the section on mental health of staff is really important. I would suggest reading it. It's really good, and it gives an overview of the importance of opening up and how important it is for kids to be present in class. And like Karen was saying, the social distancing can be very detrimental to kids, especially special needs kids. So something to consider, the American Association of Pediatricians and what they're saying for the health of kids. And also for the health of staff. So I suggest reading it and, just kind of giving a thought about it. That's about all I have to say.
Thank you, Lydia. Appreciate that. And Barry, afterwards, any links, if you could send them out to the board members.
Okay. Katrina Lethbridge expressed agreement. I'll pause for a minute to see if she wants to jump in. Next, Alyssa Bostic is asking where you can view the latest plan. It's on the school's websites and the district websites under the live feed. You scroll down a little bit, you can see the plan there that's available that we're talking about tonight. Natalie Rivera expresses agreement. Pausing for Natalie. And then on to Stacia Anderson.
Hi, everybody. I am not sure. On my screen, it looks a little different. I only commented comment, so I'm not sure if the below comment appears like I said it or if it's just on my screen, but I just wanted to state that. I'm hoping that this matrix that we have all worked on over the last week will help kind of ease some of those worries for parents. All of us really, I'm speaking on myself, or on behalf of myself, but I really miss my students. I didn't get into this profession to be a distance learning teacher or a homeschool teacher. And I also feel very responsible for the health and safety and well-being of not only my students, but my parents, my immediate family in my household, and my students' families. So this isn't a decision that is made lightly, and I'm just wanting just to state that we are really wanting to get back into the classroom, but we are really wanting to hold safety as our gold standard, and we're getting there. So this is something that no one has ever dealt with before, and we are working really hard to iron out all the details, and we love your kids. So on my screen it says it looks like I wrote Brandy agree, but that wasn't my statement. I do agree that children should be in school, but I really strongly feel that we need to do it safely. And there were 5 new COVID cases over the weekend, and we just need to get all our ducks in a row. So we've been working nonstop. I mean, just trying to iron out our details, and we really love our students, and we really appreciate the community support of, following the CDC guidelines. And I guess I'm saying we when I should say I, so I apologize for that. But anyway, that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Stacia.
Kira Hewlett is showing agreement. Heather Phillips as well. Kira, thank you for posting that link. I haven't checked it to see if that's the one that links to tonight's document. Pausing for any comment from Kira or Heather. Then moving to, it says unknown. It says, I'd like to comment, please. So pausing for, it's listed there as unknown.
Let's move on, Barry.
Okay. Let's see. Somebody logged in as Joey Sims. 100% agree with Brandy. Single full-time working mom. No idea what would do with kids if they couldn't go back to school. Don't need to speak, but wanted to see what suggests for people in her situation and what other parents will do. And we'll potentially touch on that. Katrina, thank you. Got that. Lori Sten-Strandberg logged in. We are creating an educational divide, which will hurt kids depending on whether they can afford a parent not to work or kids are left unsupervised. And then Crystal Aston comment.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for this opportunity. I just wanted to say that I agree with some of the conversations that we have parents have been having with staff and yourself, Barry, and others. With the idea of going fast or slow to go fast, easing into it, I think that it's important as we consider the ultimate goal of being 100% in the classroom and back to as normal as we possibly can be, that we might need a couple of weeks to get familiar with the online platforms that might be used should our county have to take steps backward. I think that it's important to have that time to get familiar with the different systems and how to engage online and how to operate the different programs that our educators are going to be using. And so I think it's important to have kind of that introductory time to get used to that should we have to take steps backwards, which, we all hope that we don't have to, but I think it's just important to kind of ease into it in the beginning and, like was mentioned before, see how it's going around the country, have a little bit more data. But my understanding was that students would have a choice between masks or shields. So I hope that's still an option because, one would be a little bit easier for some students than others. So I think the ultimate goal is to respect the health and safety of students and staff equally. And so I thank you very much for this opportunity to have a rich dialogue about it. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Allison. Appreciate your comments. Barry?
Karen R. posted a couple more. She had her 3 minutes, but basically questioning masks and then hospitalizations don't equate to new testing results. Katrina, we can't answer questions right now. This is time for public comment, but we can talk about face shields when that item arises. And let's see, Alyssa. Yes, and we can speak with Boys and Girls Club when the item arises. Moving on to the last one. Chris Wilmore had a comment. Humans do not exhale carbon monoxide. He doesn't need to speak. And then Janelle Walker comment.
Once again, thank you for everybody that's done whatever they can to allow everybody to be able to speak their opinion. I just want it to be known that I want my kids back in school full time. But the only way I want that to happen is if it's safe. If it's safe for the staff, if it's safe for the kids, if it's safe for me to be a volunteer in the classroom, ultimately that's what I want for the kids. I know they need interaction with their friends, interaction with their teachers, but ultimately safety has to be first. Thank you for everything you guys are doing. We appreciate you all.
Thank you so much, Jeanette. Appreciate your comments. Barry, anybody else?
That was Janelle, just for the record, Janelle.
Janelle. Oh, I thought it was Jeanette. Janelle. Okay.
And nobody else has typed in. We're still at 7:39. We were going to relook at 7:42. So still no new names in the chat right now. Renee Hansen says, agree with Janelle, no live comment needed.
So it looks like there are no other public comments at this time.
Not in the chat at this time.
We'll give it just another minute and then we will move on.
Elaine notes here that she will type. She has spotty coverage. Station notes 5 new cases reported over the weekend, not hospitalizations. So we're waiting. We'll wait on Elaine Lanier as she types. Unknown notes 50 only. It says only 52 cases total since March. Strandberg is asking a question about step 2. We will address that in number 8. Still waiting for that type. Irene Reginato, Shelby Garcia is unable to attend tonight, but wanted her voice heard that she feels masks are more protective rather than shields for children. Spring Cohen agrees with Janelle. And Jason Berkley, I support the proposal as stated. And we'll give Elaine Lanier just about another minute to finish typing. She says, I'm deeply concerned about starting the school year distance learning. We're both full-time working parents that drive for a living, very limited bandwidth in the vehicle for the children. Also concerned with the mental, social, and emotional well-being of all the children.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. So moving on to item number 4, action agenda. One, we need to have an approval of the agenda. I got a call last night regarding the agenda that 7.4 was felt to be, should be a discussion item instead of an action item. And so I suggested that you could either table it, listen to the discussion at 7.4 and then make a motion to table it to be discussed again next month before we make a decision, or we could move it on the agenda to item number 2. And John was the person who called me, and so I'll turn it over to John. What would you like to do at this point?
Yeah, I'm fine either way. I would, prefer it to be a discussion item, and I guess it would be classified under an Exhibit E, so that we're not able to take action on it. My real concern is not so much with the item, but with the idea that all of a sudden somebody can go in and take an item to the superintendent and it gets presented to the board for action when we have not given the public truly advanced notice. For years we operated with discussion 1 month and adoption the next, which gave the public ample time to comment, and to share their concerns with us. And now all of a sudden, for something especially that's not district pressing business, to be placed as a possible action item, that concerns me. And I think it sets a very bad precedent to be able to do that. So there again, I will be happy to, see it as a discussion item, but I would not prefer to be us voting on it as as an actionable item, because there again, it just sets a very bad precedent to somebody go and knock on the superintendent's door and give them a story and say, this needs to be, I want to, have this possibly acted on immediately without the public sufficiently having time to digest the item and know what we're talking about, know what we're taking action about. It's all about, school districts, and we've done very well in this district for years of presenting with higher public knowledge of what we are taking action on. And so there again, I want to encourage us to continue with that. That's been hammered into me, in, decades of boardsmanship and board training. Do not surprise the public. Do not deny them their ability to ask questions. And there again, sometimes we hear information and then we want some time to reflect upon it before we vote. It also gives us individual board members more time for reflection and consultation with constituents and to give it more thought before taking action. So that's why I'd like.
So do you have a motion, John?
Yeah, I move that we move item 7.4 to become 6.2 and as a discussion only item for this evening.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I vote
All
nay.
opposed?
I vote nay.
And I'm no too. So that is the vote of 3.
I vote no.
Against him.
So I see Bob and Nancy and myself was all giving thumbs down. So that was
We got it done.
3-2 is what I'm seeing. So do I have another motion?
But isn't that breaking the,
Just a pause. Okay, Cheryl muted. Go ahead.
So did
Wait,
John say 7.4 or 7.5? I kind of spaced out.
7.4.
7.4, which is the bicycle non-motorized active route. Okay, so do I have another motion? Nancy, Bob, do I have a motion to approve the agenda as stated?
So moved.
so moved.
Okay, Nancy, and then second, I think was Bob. Did I hear that?
Sure.
Yes, thumbs up. Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. So I'm seeing 3 ayes and
May I make a comment?
yes.
This doesn't really, I don't have a strong opinion about this, and I see both sides. So I will go ahead and vote yes on this with the motion on the table.
Okay, so that makes it 4-1, and so the motion carries. We're approving, for those who are asking, we're approving of the agenda as it stands. It was to whether to move item number 7.4 from an action item tonight to a discussion item. That does not mean we will be deciding on the item 7.4 tonight. We may still table it for next month, but it's a vote for the agenda to be left the same way. Item number 5, consent agenda. Any public comment on the consent agenda 5.1 through 5.4? Okay, so I don't think we have any public comment. Unless there's any reason to not bundle, I would like to bundle from 5.1 to 5.4. Does any board member want to pull any of those and not bundle? Okay, looks like we're okay with bundling it. Do I have a motion for our 5.1 through 5.4?
I so move.
Okay, Mona, and a second looked like it was Nancy with the thumb. So, all in favor of the approving the consent agenda 5.1 through 5.4? I see for Bob, Mona,
Aye.
myself, John saying aye, and Nancy, thumbs up. So that is, let it show, the record show that it was unanimous. Moving on to item number 6, any public comment for item number 6.1? This is a discussion item only. It's a COVID-19 update. Public comment.
Nothing else in the chat.
Okay, so Barry?
This one's going to be short. My main update is under 7.5, where we talk about the reopening phases, the matrix. So I'll save my comment for right then. We just had a meeting last month. We went into depth about the COVID-19 and the district looking at that. So very little to say at this time.
Okay. Unless there's any board comments about the COVID-19 update.
I'm sorry, I was interrupted for a moment. Is this, so you may have just said this, Barry, but is this the placeholder where we would have reference to our core principles pyramid elements and that's how we would bring those things forward under that item each meeting? Or are we gonna do that starting next meeting and name it something different?
Starting next meeting, I don't know if we'll name it something different, but yeah, the pyramid and the notes that you introduced and stuff like that would be part of that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for that clarification, Nancy. Appreciate that. So unless there's any other board comments, then we will move on to action agenda item 2. That's number 7, item number 7. Is there any public comment for any item on 7.1 through 7.5?
I would suggest you break it down to 7.1 to 7.3, Kay, if you don't mind. I see the sun is in your face.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I like that. So any public comment for 7.1 through 7.3? Okay, no, does not look like there's any public comment. So 7.1 is approve tentative agreement with the CSEA Chapter 720 for the 2020 to 2021 year. Do I have a motion?
I so move.
Second.
And who is that?
John Duncan.
John.
Okay, thank you, John. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Looks like I'm seeing thumbs up. I heard from John. Nancy, was that also? Okay, so that's unanimous. 7.2, approve 2020 to 2021 classified salary schedule. Do I have a motion?
I
So
so
moved.
move. I'll second.
Mona okay, John is made the motion and Mona seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So motion carries, it's unanimous. 7.3, approve 2020-2021 management confidential salary schedule. Do I have a motion?
I so move.
Mona?
I'll second.
And was that Nancy second? Yeah, so Nancy second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So that was motion carries unanimously. Thank you. So moving on to item number 7.4, support grant application for Mount Shasta City to develop non-motorized active transportation bicycling and pedestrian opportunities and to make certain intersections safer for bicyclists and pedestrians. And just a reminder for the board members that we can discuss it tonight and then make either a motion to table for next month, or we can make a motion to address it this month as an action item.
Were you going to call for public comment, Kay, before?
Oh, yes, thank you. That's right. I always put it at the beginning before when we start the whole thing. So we divided it out. 7.4, public comment.
And Tim Stearns will have a chance to present here in just a little bit. So Tim, hold on to that.
Yeah,
Any
I was
besides Tim?
thinking we would get the public comment and then Tim would make his presentation.
Yep.
Is there any public comment?
I still don't see any in the chat.
Okay, so unless you want to give it a minute more, we could go ahead with Tim.
Okay, and Chris, thank you for Chris Walmart reaching out to Tim to make sure he's got as far as the sharing the screen goes. So Tim, if you would like to go ahead and do the present now, we can view your screen. I'm going to set the timer for 15 minutes as we talked about.
So I'm chair of the Active Transportation Committee for the city, but I'm going to ask that Michael Williams actually make the presentation since he's much more addicted about the matter than I am. And he's prepared to do that. So I'm going to go back on mute and turn it over to him.
Okay, and it looks like Michael is working on sharing his screen.
All right, thank you, everybody. Can you see my screen?
We cannot.
We cannot, yeah.
Okay, it's working on presenting right now, Michael. Hang on just a second. All right, we can see your screen now, Michael.
Excellent. Okay, well, thank you for letting me present. I know you've got a lot of important stuff to consider this evening. I'll try to make this as brief as possible. Some of you may know me as a dedicated community volunteer, Siskiyou Ice Rink, Mount Shasta Summit Sentry, etc. But what many people don't know is that about 6-7 years ago, I moved to Portland, got my master's in civil engineering with an emphasis on transportation, worked at the corporate headquarters of the world leader in active transportation, and have developed a national reputation in active transportation, and in my particular area of specialty, even an international reputation. And so I'm hoping to share some of my knowledge and skills with the city this particular grant application that we're seeking support for is, I believe, a key element of our active transportation network. What I'm going to talk about today is active transportation in Mount Shasta. The Midtown Trail is the highest priority for the city. I'm going to probably skip over details about the active transportation program itself, and then talk a little bit about the route. So active transportation in Mount Shasta. First thing I want to do is I want to differentiate between recreational trails and active transportation trails. As you see from the pictures on the left, recreational trails look different. They are used differently. People go for a ride. People go for a hike. People go for a walk. But when you look at active transportation, there on the right side, people go to school. People go to work. People go shopping. So these trails are different. They have different priorities. They can overlap. The big emphasis on active transportation trips is that they begin and end at home, whereas recreational trips and trails, you may drive to a trailhead or do something like that. The Active Transportation Committee's charter is active transportation. We have other groups that concentrate on recreation. And the key point is that Mount Shasta needs and deserves both. So why active transportation? Well, a lot of this stuff, most of you are familiar with or already know. Public health, Siskiyou County is at the bottom of the barrel for California counties in public health. After decades of year-upon-year increases, we've had year-upon-year decreases in American life expectancy every year since 2015. Most of that's due to lifestyle diseases, obesity, heart disease, etc., which are easily preventable by a little bit of gentle activity during the day. Active transportation is cost-effective transportation. Transportation is often the second largest expense for households after their housing. And we've got chronic unemployment here. We've got a significant number of children in poverty. Active transportation is also good transportation for people without cars, licenses, or insurance. Those are people too young to drive, people too old to drive, or who have chosen not to drive, the poor, the disabled, etc. And of course, with the up and coming generations, some of them are choosing not to drive, not to learn to drive. And of course, climate change used to be the big news before COVID happened, but the transportation sector is the largest contributor of greenhouse gases. So turning that question around, in our town here, Mount Shasta, why not active transportation? On this map here, I have two circles drawn, centered on City Hall. The inner circle is a circle of 1 mile in radius. The outer circle is 2 miles in radius. If you're bicycling, you can cover a mile in 5 minutes at a very moderate pace of 12 miles an hour. That inner circle, that 5-minute circle, includes our downtown, the majority of our neighborhoods, Ray Shopping Center, all our public schools, City Hall, Youth Sports Park, Shasta East Park. And so the answer to that question, we attempted to explore when we first created the Bike, Ped, and Trails Master Plan. And I think that's Chris in that picture down there, by the way. We did a survey to which we had 13% of the population of Mount Shasta respond. And the question is, to what extent do the following aspects affect your choice to allow your child to bicycle or walk more often? Very much and extremely affects answers added up to 68% in lack of bikeways and 64% fear of cars and drivers. Additionally, 87% of parents were more willing to allow their child to bicycle if these obstacles were removed. And that falls in line with national research among 50 different communities that explored the reasons that people don't ride more often. And what they found is that people could really be categorized into 4 types. Strong and fearless, they ride anywhere, they don't need bike facilities. That's the lycra-clad, usually male, younger folks. Second category, enthusiastic and confident. They'll ride if there are bicycle lanes available or low volume roads where things feel safe. But unfortunately, those two categories, if you look on the right-hand side, really make up a pretty small percentage of the population. The bulk of folks fall into this third category, interested but concerned. They're interested in riding, but their main concern is about safety. And of course, we got the no way, no how. Those are folks that don't have bikes, not interested in riding. So this national data dovetails in quite well with Mount Shasta, where we estimate our interested but concerned population from our survey data at 64 to 68%. And if we look at travel to school, we see an even worse picture. Nationally, from 1969 to 2017, 48% of students used to bike and walk to school. Most of us probably bike and walk to school ourselves, but in 2017, only 10% of students did that. And we did a couple of surveys of Sisson School, and we found only 2 to 3 bikes in the bike rack. That's less than 1% of students riding bikes, where our survey data tells us that nearly half of the students live 1 to 5 miles away, which is a perfect distance for riding your bike. So we have a really low bicycling percentage at Sisson, despite living in a supposedly safe, calm town. So let's talk about the Midtown Trail as the city's highest priority. So when the Bike Ped and Trails Master Plan was created in 2009, there was a committee that was created. Well, there's a committee that was created to implement that plan. And what they saw were the low bicycling rates I mentioned, the very low bicycling rate at our schools, the high level of concern about lack of bikeways and safety. So their decision was to build a path that ran north-south through town, linked the maximum number of homes to schools, to parks, and to downtown. Additionally, they wanted to make that path usable by a solo 10-year-old child, so it had to be quite safe, only a few cars, and the cars that were on that route had to be traveling at low speeds. And I'm just going to skip the rest of that. So this trail, it became the highest priority of the Active Transportation Committee, and they made some pretty darn good progress. They built an off-street path connecting Birch Avenue to B Street. This allows people to travel north-south through town without needing to use either Washington or Mount Shasta Boulevard. The city was convinced to dedicate Castle Alley, the part gravel, part pavement alley that runs alongside Sisson Meadow, dedicate that to bike and pedestrian use. That hasn't been implemented yet, but it is already dedicated. We've had continuing city council support in terms of hard cash. There are other elements of the network that have been built around that rotary trail and the bike lanes, on-street bike lanes. And we had a project for a short time that I was leading before I went to Portland to follow my dream, a Weed Mount Shasta Dunsmuir Trail project, which used this short section of trail through Mount Shasta as a section in Mount Shasta.
We have 4 minutes, 40 seconds left.
All right, I'm going to skip the information on the actual program itself and take you to a brief just a bird's eye view of the route we're proposing. As I said, it extends north-south through town. It lies primarily to the east of Mount Shasta Boulevard, tries to stay down low so you're not dealing with the hills as you go farther east. It intends to connect to Sisson School, Mount Shasta High School, Jefferson High School, and Shasta East Park. We've got a little stub for the folks going to downtown, and it essentially runs through the high school tract and along much of the North A, South A corridor, and then down into what is called the Landing via Oak Street, which is a very low volume corridor. So that's it. I'll leave time for, this is for the city council. I've got time for questions if people have any.
So, board members, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I'm curious, is the trail wide enough for fire equipment to be able to travel on if there's an emergency, and police equipment? There again, if you have someone assaulting somebody, they're going to be able to drive up to the site where it's occurring?
Well, most of this trail actually is on street. So yes, to that question. There are some chunks of the trail that will be off-street paths, and those are generally going to be 8 to 10 feet wide, so more than wide enough for a vehicle to access. One comment I'd like to make. You mentioned the possibility of postponing this to next month. The city council is going to be making a decision on the 27th about this grant application. So I think it would be, I'm not sure how much an expression of support will matter past that city council meeting.
If I may jump in, Barry?
Certainly, yes, Tim.
All right, thanks, Kay. Yes, the reason that we're presenting this to you tonight is that the city's Active Transportation Committee is recommending to the city council next Monday night to authorize the preparation of the infrastructure grant application for this bike and pedestrian route, which is primarily on city streets, but safer, quieter streets than Mount Shasta Boulevard. And we want your support to the city council to say, yes, city, go ahead and submit the infrastructure grant application to Caltrans. We have no assurance that we're going to be awarded grant application, but every bit helps.
I have a question. Does the city have to do matching monies on this grant?
There is no matching funds. No matching funds are required. And we can apply for up to $2 million for infrastructure. Actually, there would be infrastructure, it would be pre-engineering, CEQA, and actual improvements. It would improve a number of the intersections in town for pedestrian and bike safety, as well as marking streets and expanding the bike route. Michael refers to it as a bike trail, but Caltrans likes to call it a bike and pedestrian route.
So who maintains the trail after this is built?
Again,
Who pays for that? Who pays for the ongoing maintenance?
John, these are primarily on city streets.
Okay, the part that's not on the city streets, who pays for it? Who does it?
Actually, I think all of the trail is either on.
Or you will guarantee?
Mike, I couldn't hear you.
The entire length of the trail is either on existing city streets or on undeveloped city right-of-way.
So there again, does the city end up having to maintain that right-of-way for safety?
Excuse me, John?
Does the city have to maintain that right-of-way for safety? You know, who's gonna patrol that if we're gonna have kids going up and down this trail? You know.
Well, the segments of trail that are off-street paths are not very long. They're connectors primarily. And so it's easy to see into the trail. And this is one of the things what you're expressing is a concern about safety. And that is a common concern around trail.
With our transient population here who's doing a lot of damage, you know, look at the city park right now. They're trashing it. You know,
right. So
are we gonna have transients using this trail and building campsites off the side of the trail, starting fires or doing whatever, you know, possibly harming a child? That's my concern.
Right. One of the best ways to deal with issues like that on a trail is visibility. The connectors we're talking about either already exist in the case of the Birch to Bee connector, or they're going to be relatively short and visible for the entire time from the streets. They bridge across between streets, and it'll be easy to see into the trail so that there's no opportunity for people to hide. Really about the only trail you're talking about is right there by the Siskiyou Land Trust, where they have their Gateway Greenway. We're going to have a trail there, but it follows right along the route that they've already established.
And the city police already, each shift drives about 60 miles a day on city streets, number one. Number two, last year, the city council authorized the Public Works Department to buy the bicycle templates that you've seen on city streets, painted on the city streets, and also provided some additional money for signage. So we're already in progress, but this gives us the opportunity to get infrastructure funding if the grant is approved.
Mona?
I have a comment. I am a cyclist. My husband is. My two children rode their bikes to school from kindergarten to seniors in high school. I commuted to MSC for 27 years on my bike. I really support this project. I think it's great. I think it's much safer than what my kids used to ride on, or I'm on my bike 4 to 5 times a week now. And it's much safer than these kids riding on Mount Shasta Boulevard, even with their parents. So I really support this project, and I'm really glad to see, I'm very happy to see it happening for our town.
Any other board member?
Ditto. Kind of
I'm just
excited.
concerned about safety from our students with regards to the transient population that's doing harm to this community, predators possibly being out there. And yeah, it only takes a predator about 2 seconds to harm a child. So that's my concern. Mount Shasta PD, they don't even patrol the streets really. Look at all the speeders we have happening. You know, they needed to be doing a much better job than what they're doing. So I don't have much confidence in their coverage of what they're doing. There again, I am concerned about possibly, you know, increasing access for transients, starting fires. You know, right now our community is going through a really bad time. Transients are really destroying our city, you know, and creating a lot of havoc. So anyway, that's my comment with this.
Nancy?
Maybe Michael and Tim could speak to this, but isn't part of the point of the grant to work through those issues too? And to build infrastructure that will help us address and understand that better?
Yeah, good point, Nancy. The program awards money for a full project development cycle. So that includes scoping at the beginning, coming up with a project study report, a CEQA analysis once that's done, and issues like safety are examined as part of that planning process. One thing I want to also address is, John, you mentioned concerns about speeding, and that's been one of the top priorities of ATC recently. This, one of the primary elements of this route is to calm those major streets that are crossed. And primarily we're talking about Lake Street, McLeod Avenue, Mount Shasta Boulevard. And the idea is that at those crossings, we need to bring motor vehicle speeds way down. We need to create crossings that allow people to cross one direction of traffic at a time. So you're not trying to cross the entire street all at one go. So that's one of our goals, is to also decrease the speeding. That, I mean, they just bumped the speed limit on Lake Street up to 30 miles an hour down near Alder and Chestnut. So I believe we have a real problem on Lake Street, and that's one of the things we're hoping to address.
And so when did you address this with the chief of police? Seems like you should have already done that. Did you do it yet?
Yeah, we have talked to the chief of police about the speeding issue. That's an issue that is very complicated and very involved. I'm happy to talk to you about it offline, because I feel strongly about this as well, but I'm not sure this is the right time.
No, actually, it's simple. Tell the chief to get his copies out there, start enforcing speed limits. It's real simple.
John, according to Chief Parrish Cross, the city is aware of some of the issues. They have to officially do a traffic speed study, and then once the speed study is done, they can go ahead and modify the speeds.
Yeah, why don't they just go ahead and write tickets for people who are already exceeding the posted limits? Come on, give me an answer.
John, I can't answer
I see people exceeding the speed limits every day, and Mount Shasta PD is nowhere to be seen.
Okay, Bob, do you have any comments?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Okay, what do you need from us, Mike?
How about I let Tim answer that?
Tim, what do you need
Okay,
from us?
What we would like is a letter or email of support going to the city council members, recommending that they vote yes in terms of allowing the city to submit the infrastructure grant application to the state. So a recommendation for a yes vote on the for next Monday night on the agenda item, which was the ATP infrastructure grant application.
Okay. And Barry, I've noticed quite a few comments coming in from the public. Would you mind reading us those messages that came in?
Let me unmute myself here. In regards to the bike trail, what will be done regarding the homeless along the trail? No need to talk. That was mentioned. This sounds fantastic. How can we voice our support? This from Leslie Johnson, Richard Wolmar. This would be a wonderful addition to our town and community. Thank you so much for your effort and dedication. Unknown person issues support. Chris Wolmar, as a bike commuter, I strongly support this project. No need to talk. Amanda Boniver, great project. Brandy McKnight, thank you for allowing the late comment. I fully support this.
Okay, so are there any other comments from that's it from the public? Okay, do I have a motion?
To what, Kay, to write a letter?
Well, it's whatever anybody wants to do. If they want to make a motion to write a letter or to.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I wasn't quick enough with the unmute. I'm not. I'm just one team, but I'm just Tim or is it William or Bill would like to reach to the unions for support. We could discuss that as a union.
I don't know if you could understand
well.
her. She's saying that it was breaking up, but she's suggesting that you reach out to MSETA or CSEA. That's the classified and the certificated staff unions for support. Sounds like there might be some interest from them. Mona, back to your question. You can do whichever kind of motion you want. You can ask, make a motion to table it and be discussed next month, or you could make a motion to pass or whatever. Nancy.
Tim, would it make sense to amend your request to just offer a letter of support for the grant application with implied support for the yes vote? Move this along?
That's what I was trying to communicate, yes.
All right, I'm channeling you today.
So Nancy, why don't you propose the motion?
Okay, I move that we write a letter of support for the grant application, blah, 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 for the city to submit the grant application on this project. And we're in support of it.
Okay, I
Do I have a
second.
second? Mona seconds. Mona seconds. All in favor? Please use your. Okay, I see 4. Oh, those opposed?
No.
No. So we have a vote for it and 1 opposed. Because I was a thumbs up also.
All right.
So
Thank
the
you.
motion carries. So Barry, if you would please write that letter to the city, approve, giving our support for this bicycle lane that would provide safety for our students getting to school and from school.
Clarification, do you want me to note the 4-1 vote?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Excuse me, in the letter of support, is that necessary? I mean, it's certainly in our minutes.
That's what I'm asking. I don't want to make that decision myself.
Okay, board members, how do you want? Do you want to show the 4-1 vote or not? How about the 4 people who voted for?
Yeah.
To me, that's internal business. We keep it in our notes available to the general public. A letter of support is a letter of support, and by due process, we agreed to it.
You know, going back to the cannabis, did we note in our letter of, we did not note the vote, and yet it was not we did not have a unanimous vote. Mona?
It was a resolution. I don't think we did a letter.
I know we had a resolution. I'm trying to remember if we had one. I don't remember. Right. But we did not note in the resolution. So, Bob, how do you feel about noting the vote or not?
I think that's appropriate for the minutes. That's all needs to be done.
I'm
said
having trouble hearing you. What did you say?
He said appropriate.
Pardon?
In our board minutes only.
Okay.
And John was trying to talk, Kay, while you were talking.
Okay, John?
No, I think we just sent a resolution that, stating what the board had determined. I don't think there was a vote, reporting of a vote given. And there again, it's most important what the decision of the board as a whole has come to.
Thank you for the direction.
Okay, so no vote will be included, to be clear. Okay, moving on, item number 7.5. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate your presentation and that you thought to bring it to us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Barry, item number 7.5.
7.5, you may want to open it up for public comment again first. But
If you could tell me if there were any public comment.
let me just clarify for folks, because this has been an ongoing question, is what the public sees the plan, they're not sure, it hasn't been made clear. The plan is just the plan, so it doesn't say in there where we would look to start. And so my only comment I would make before you open to public comment is we would be looking, my recommendation to the board tonight will be for us to, number one, adopt this plan, and in that same action to state that we would start in stage 2. So to clarify for everybody, to start in stage 2.
And exactly what is stage 2?
Stage 2, yeah, thank you. Stage 2 is that distance learning is in place for all students. However, there are student learning hubs that could operate at each site. Those would be scalable depending on student needs, family interest, and staff availability. You could scale those up or down. Daily online interaction with teachers and peers would be part of that distance learning. That's different than it was in the spring when we were just transitioning. So this is a requirement from the state for daily online interaction with teachers and peers. In-person instruction would be possibly available through those on-site student learning hubs, depending on, like I said, the staff, student interest, and the behavior of the virus. And then those students that would be available to go to those learning hubs would be students with special needs, English learners, Title I students, and students struggling with distance learning. So unlike in the spring, this coming fall, the proposal, if we start in step 2, would be to have the potential to have some in-person, face-to-face instruction for those students in those groups. Face coverings would be worn at all times on campus, and there would be no extra adults on campus dropping their students off inside the building, picking them up. We would keep extra adults from entering the building.
Okay, great, thank you. So now then, if you could help me with the public comment, if there are any public comments.
Still not seeing any names in the chat.
Oh.
Here we go. Brandy McKnight, go ahead.
Hi, yeah. I just wanted to kind of add an additional comment. And I realize that the way that this meeting is set up, that it's not really a Q&A, but I'll still go ahead and request that this question be answered if possible. What criteria for stage 3 are we not meeting? And then the other part of that would be, I know we had talked about in some of the parent meetings, making sure that built-in checkpoints were built in, right? So if we go in stage 2 or 3 or whatever, who's checking in to see if we're meeting the criteria to move forward? Is that quarterly? I'm not sure that that's built into the plan. So I would request that that be part of the discussion when you are deciding to vote on approving this and moving forward. And then thirdly, I would just ask that, again, I do appreciate, Barry, that you've given parents, I've been involved with a lot of the meetings, and again, I appreciate it, but I'm feeling that maybe parents were allowed to provide our comments, but I'm not feeling that they're necessarily being heard. And again, I'm advocating for my children. I totally respect that the staff needs to advocate for themselves. So I don't want to discount that, but I just want to make sure I'm doing my part for my kids and the community. And so I would ask again, and I realize you don't have to answer, that the parent opinions be part of the board discussion if possible. Thank you.
And a Janelle comment.
My comment on the stages or the steps in reopening would be starting slow and moving forward, progressing faster to get it fully open. Slower is always better instead of going full force out the gates, everything blowing, going at it. I believe starting slow would be the best. That's just my personal opinion. We can always ramp it up a lot easier than it is to ramp it back down if we start full force. And once again, thank you for allowing us parents to voice our opinions.
A comment from a question from a teacher who will be teaching the hubs. I will comment on that once the public comment is closed. So moving to unknown, says I'd like to comment. Somebody logged in as unknown.
Hi, sorry I'm listed as unknown. This is Alyssa Johnson commenting. Just wanted to say, first of all, I appreciate the opportunity to speak and comment and appreciate everybody's input. I did want to say it seems like people who don't have Facebook or internet have no idea about these meetings. I'm wondering if there's a way to put it out to them via a mailer or some other way. I know it's on your website, but if they're not directed to your website via Facebook, they won't know. Also, I'm in 100% agreement with comments made earlier by Brandy McKnight, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Alyssa.
Kirby, somebody logged in as Kirby Hiley. It looks like my kids suffered from distance learning this last year and they need more help from their teachers. Jasmine Pretty has a question. Is this reopening plan the actual plan, or is it still tentative? Is the question. This is the plan that's before the board for approval. Katrina Lethbridge, again, my biggest concern with distance learning is the internet access. Ours was off and on, very frustrating, wasting a lot of time. Janelle Walker, phone tree call to get the word out. The one bus run calls potentially is an idea for getting the word out for board meetings. And then Lori and Sten Strandberg, there are no good alternatives for families where both parents are working. We need to get back to school.
Is there any other public comment?
Allison Blankenship.
Hi there. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I have two things I just would like to address. One, if we do go ahead and you decide to start with distance learning, will it be systematically done where teachers are aligning their instruction so that it is consistent among grade levels to make it easier for parents as far as meeting times? And I understand daily interactions are necessary, but I think a consistent, systematic approach for that distance learning would be much easier on parents with multiple children in multiple grades. The other thing is, speaking of systems, I'm looking at your step 2, and it says to move to step 3. It shows that no new cases in the student learning hubs or immediate households for 4 consecutive days. Do you have a plan to track data to make sure that we're meeting those goals before moving on to the next step so that we can officially move on when we're ready?
Thank you. And
Thank
then
you. Sorry, I'm done.
Elaine Lanier, was the previous parent survey taken into consideration? Was a question. I'll note to touch on that.
Okay.
And let's see, Allison Blankenship with a comment.
Did you not hear me? I was just speaking.
That's what I thought. So wait a second. Okay, got it. So you're good to go.
Okay, thank you for your time. Yep, I have no more to say.
Stacia clarified.
Allison.
Stacia Anderson clarified 14 consecutive days prior days to move to stage 3, 14. And then Julianne Tinsman with a comment.
Yes, I spoke at.
Julianne, we can't hear you. I don't know if it's that mic
Yep.
boom.
There we go. Thank you. I apologize. I spoke to this during a parent meeting yesterday, and I just wanted to assure the board and parents that when we teachers are looking at distance learning for the fall, just like Stacia Hardy said earlier, Stacia Anderson, sorry, we care so deeply about our students, our children, they are our community, and really care about the safety of all of us. Academically, please rest assured that distance learning will look very, very different than what we did in the spring. I don't know how many parents are aware of that, but we have been educating ourselves, taking online classes, really trying to figure out how to do this right so that we do not have any holes, any gaps, and we do have the social interaction of our students as a high priority for all of us. So please rest assured that we are thinking about all of this and definitely considering all of your concerns.
And Jasmine Pretty with a comment.
Thank you, Julianne.
Yeah, so I guess my biggest question and concern is just when will we have a finalized idea, or at least at the very least a tentative plan or date as to when this reopening plan is going to happen. So do you guys have any specific date that you can give us? I know a lot of other districts already have plans implemented that are already in place. So I guess I think I speak for myself and a lot of parents when I say we're totally understanding of the fact that there are so many ambiguous and uncertain circumstances to navigate here, but at the same time, parents really need more than a couple of weeks to restructure and revamp our entire lives and work schedules so that we can somehow be available for distance learning. And so
or even to make that feasible. So like I know my personal circumstances, my husband's a first responder and I'm an essential worker. So along with many other parents that are present in this forum, I need to somehow get my work schedule aligned if I'm going to be home doing virtual distance learning. And furthermore, I'd also really like to give my children the emotional and mental preparation and support to prepare for, not returning to school at all, or if they're returning, to prepare them, that they're going to be returning under extremely unconventional terms and circumstances, so that I have time to, articulate the whole hybrid learning plan to them. I know a lot of kids of our kids are eager for us to give them some type of explanation as to what's going to happen. So I'm just really wondering if you guys have any idea of a date that you can give us so that we can start planning.
Thank you, Jasmine. Appreciate your comments, your questions. Barry?
And to speak to Jasmine, that's what's appearing before the board tonight. We understand that those decisions need to be made. So this larger kind of overarching plan is we want to, at least it's before the board to act on potentially tonight. Marcy Spafford, will the distance learning be structured better? I understand we were all thrown into it in the spring, felt we were going through the motions, busy work, overall lack of parent skills to teach the materials properly. Julianne spoke to that. Cheryl Kiner with a comment.
Cheryl?
Sorry, with a mic trouble. So as the representative of the Mount Shasta Union Teachers Association, all of our teachers want to return to education as we knew it. And we are anxious and working as hard as we can to do that. And it's simply that we are looking at safety measures for students and for staff. And we are working in concert as quickly as we possibly can. And we just hope that families will just hang with us and let us work through those pieces that we've never, ever experienced before. And let us reteach your children at some point.
Jasmine, would you go ahead and mute again? There's some scratching that may be getting in the way. So Jasmine, if you would please double check, be sure to mute.
Thank you, Cheryl.
And Cheryl, thank you. Alyssa Bostic, question regarding possible back to school schedule when available.
Okay. And a lot of these questions, I hope you're noting them and you can address them when you present the proposal.
Right. Alyssa Bostic, log in as Alyssa Bostic. Alyssa, feel free to, I can't hear you.
Sorry.
There you go.
You had a mute issue. Thank you so much for letting me speak. Quick question. I've heard a couple of different plans for when the children are actually able to go back to campus. One of them was a split schedule with one group going in the morning and then doing online learning in the afternoon, and then the next day having online learning in the morning and going to school in the afternoon. If we're having children with split days like that, who will be teaching the online portion if the teacher's working with another group of students?
I believe I'll be able to address that in my discussion.
Thank you.
See, and then Lori Sten-Strandberg, distance learning depends on parent availability and student compliance. Marcy Spafford, thank you for that comment. Chris, thank you for helping with the muted. And so we're at the bottom of the chat again.
Okay, so thank you very much for giving us your questions and your concerns. I really appreciate that. And then when we get to board comment, then I will give my thoughts on a lot of that, as other board members will also. Barry, do you have anything you want to tell us about this?
Yeah, basically since July 6th, we've been working, hard on this project of this kind of general overarching plan. We specifically waited to get closer to the start of the school year so we could watch the behavior of the virus, and so parents and giving their input could be closer to when the actual start of school would be, and so they could have that input. These 4 steps range from total distance learning clear to being back to normal, and the second page lists those items that would be required to move from step to step. I won't go over all of those movements. I will focus on step 2, however, and to again clarify that my recommendation to the board tonight is to adopt the step 2 as much as like the teachers have said. All of us want to be at step 4. The issue comes down to safety, and while there are again competing views on what's safe and how safe is it, I do want to note that this plan, if we start in step 2, it's on the conservative side of the governor's latest proposals. We are in a county that is not on the California's watch list. So according to the governor, we have the ability to discuss and potentially move to a hybrid model or even a greater in-person model. But the governor has made it clear that it's up to local decision makers, public health departments, school boards, to make these types of decisions. So with step 2, again, I think the teachers did a good job of talking about how it will be different from what we were thrown into in the spring, which I believe really goes without saying when we had only 3 teacher workdays to be able to pivot to a fully online distance learning. We had no support from the state in how to do that. The teachers have been working over the summer. There's also a big push from the teachers, from what I'm hearing from parents as well, that gels to standardize this process for our families and not have them go to, 8 different apps and different websites to try to get to the information and working with their students for us to really standardize our approach so that parents know what to expect by grade level, and have a kind of a one-stop shop utilizing our website as a good dropping off place, and then also using like Google Classroom for certain grade levels, potentially using a program called Seesaw for some of the lower grade levels. Those are details that we remain to be worked out here at in the last weeks of July and into August. And so distance learning will definitely look different. The teachers have made it clear that one of their goals is to lessen the impact on families, as far as they got a lot of feedback from parents about, they felt, the parents felt like they had to be, the teacher in a lot of instances. And the teachers have made it very clear that that's one of their goals, is to lessen the impact on families for their children's education. What is different again compared to the spring and this coming fall, if we were to start in step 2, is that the possibility of those in-person instructional hubs. And again, it is scalable. It is based on staff that are willing to staff those hubs. And I know that there are staff that are willing to do that. I know a teacher was like, well, who's going to teach that? The staff members will be able to elect to be able to do that. It's a way for us to give potentially in-person attention to those students who may be at greater risk of falling even further behind with learning loss. Something that was not available in the spring, and currently in the governor's plan, the governor's mandate. These in-person student learning hubs would not be available to 80% of the students in the state of California, because 80% of the students fall into those counties that are on the watch list that are having to start with full distance learning with no possibility of in-person. And so we're taking it a step further, going, yes, we are not on that watch list. We can do some in-person learning. And so we want to explore and flesh out the details around those in-person learning hubs. We're not the only district that's looking at that. I know there are other districts in the state that are looking at this kind of hybrid model as well. So we'll continue to explore and see what we can do. The bottom line is to provide extra support for those students if we can in person, because we know that definitely makes a difference. The last thing that I would say, and certainly open it up for questions to the board, and I'll look at my notes to make sure I covered some of these other questions that I heard in the public, is there are going to be many districts that are 80% of the children in California are going to be starting off even in a more distance learning option than we are. The 20% that are going to be able to potentially start slow like we are, as one of the parents put it, or that are willing to jump in, there's going to be districts, in the state across California that are going to be starting in a hybrid model. Some maybe even jumping in certain states all the way into full in-person learning. That was the governor of Florida mandated that, and we're seeing some pushback from teachers as far as their safety goes in Florida. My point is that within 4 to 6 weeks of the school starting in August 24, 4 to 6 weeks after that, there's going to be so much information and data around what is happening with these school districts that took a more aggressive approach. Are they having to close down? Are they being successful? What lessons can be learned from those that are kind of leading that charge out kind of in front and being more aggressive along the lines of safety? We're going to have that information from across the state and from across the country to help inform our decisions. One parent asked, well, when would be the checkpoints to see, well, when could we move to step 3? And I would posit for the group that let's give it 4 to 6 weeks after the start of school to see how these other districts are faring. We've all seen in the news those states that rushed to reopen, and we're seeing that they're having to close down at this point. We don't want our school to be a microcosm of that rush to reopen. My concern is that a lot of these schools that are being more aggressive could encounter having to close back down, having to go to completely distance learning potentially because they went too far too quickly. There's still so much that we don't know about how this virus would spread within school populations in the United States, with everything being so politicized when it comes to social distancing and safety. You can talk about other countries. It's hard to find a parallel, in my opinion, with other countries and how they've done social, all these safety measures as nations and where we are as the United States. So that is our, again, over the last two weeks of getting public input, getting input from my parent leadership team, our staff teams, countless hours coming to this point. Our hope is that this plan would be approved and that we would get the green light to go ahead and plan on starting in step 2 and not consider starting in step 3. Certainly there's a possibility if this governor closed down our county that we might have to then even go to step 1. So our ask is that the board would say, yep, let's support starting step 2. Obviously, if the public health situation worsens to the degree where the public health officer or the governor is saying everybody needs to be in step 1 in Siskiyou County, that we would have to follow that mandate. But that allows, like one of the parents asked, they're looking, they need time to wrap their minds around what the school year is going to look like, at least the start of the school year. And taking this action tonight will allow us then to focus on step 2, flesh out these details, continue to talk to our parents and reach out to them about how they see, their children participating in this and educating our parents about what the the distance learning will look like, and some of those other items. So at that point, that's the presentation. What criteria, it was asked, what criteria are we not meeting for stage 3? Currently, the Office of Emergency Services has promised all school districts in California 60 days worth of PPE, protective equipment, and hand sanitizer. None of that has been received by our district. We've ordered masks and hand sanitizer on our own. We have some of it. We don't have all of it. So as far as, a full 2-month supply for our students, that has not been received by our districts yet. And in fact, any districts in Siskiyou County. Siskiyou County is working on getting those. I believe some of those items have come from the Office of Emergency Services to the Siskiyou County Office of Education. They're still working on getting it out, and they have not received all of those items from OES at this point. We obviously haven't seen how the virus would behave even within small groups of students that we would have gathered at socially distanced with masks. We haven't been able to see how that operates for 14 days. Again, my ask is let's give it 4 to 6 weeks. And then let's see, maximize the ventilation filtration systems, although we're starting to look at those, maximizing our filtration and the filters that we're using and ordering those pieces. We're still not totally there at both sites, so the filtration remains an issue. We have not purchased any air cleaners that are portable yet for rooms, so that's still something that we're looking at. Hand washing stations is still also something that we're looking to purchase. All of these things are on the docket that we can use some of those federal one-time funds to purchase. I already talked about the face coverings. We still haven't received those, although we've ordered some of our own. And then another question was about, how will that data be tracked about, if students or families are COVID-19 positive. That is still evolving at the state level. We just had a meeting today with all the superintendents in Siskiyou County, and again, we were told that again is still evolving. Our public health officer and our public health department is going to be working with schools on what that looks like and what that contact tracing can look like. One of the main concerns that I have as far as going to step 3 is, again, the amount of time that it takes for those tests to come back. I'm hearing anecdotally nothing close to 3 days. Nothing close, certainly, to same day. I'm hearing 9 days. I'm hearing longer than that. And in some articles that I'm reading, the note that I took was, and I'll see if I can find it here quickly, if you can't get a result back within a certain amount of time, it almost makes testing pointless. Is how somebody put it. So the state of testing really does concern us as far as the ability to contact trace in a very quick way, and that is something that is out of our control as a school that needs to happen in the community. I'll definitely open it up for questions. I've said a lot. The last thing I'll close with is you may have known that the American Academy of Pediatrics weighed in. They came with a strong statement about students need to be in school. We understand. As a district, we understand the harm that not being in school can cause to students, is causing to students, especially on a social emotional level. That same academy came out with some new language later on about basically saying that their guidance wasn't meant as a directive to, we need to get all students into school as soon as possible. So they kind of walked it back. I don't want to use the term necessarily, but they softened the language. And then I read an article today from the president-elect of the same group, the American Academy of Pediatrics. One of the quote I took from there is that she says teachers and staff need to feel comfortable and safe when teaching our children. And the plan before you and to start in step 2 represents the ability of our teachers and staff to feel comfortable and safe when they're teaching our children. From a legal perspective, I just got a legal brief today that says from a safety and liability perspective, the more precautions, the better, which could include everyone. They're saying even going beyond the governor's mandate with just including, everyone wearing masks. So our plan lines up with that latest legal counsel kind of circular that was sent out today. And it does align with the American Academy of Pediatrics as far as with making sure that our teachers feel safe so that they can then bring their best selves to the work with the students.
Thank you, Barry. So do I have any questions or comments from board members? Mona?
Barry, would you please, I have many comments and a few questions. Let me just say what I'm thinking, and then maybe, Barry, you can take what questions I have and write them down. You don't have to answer right away. But I would like a little bit more information about step 2 and the hubs. I'm reading that children with IEPs will be served. They have their plans already intact with their teachers. So the teachers, the RSTs already have pretty much their caseload, but they will need to be identifying if there are any new kids entering the district. And then Title I students, usually at the beginning of the year, you have the June and May scores and data to use for identification. So I'm thinking they will have to probably use mid-year. I'm not quite sure how that will work, but before they can even begin to work with Title I students, and particularly new, they will have to assess children. So I'm taking, if you can kind of give me an idea, what will those Title I caseloads, how do you think that will work? Just if you can give me an idea. And same with the ELL students, if we have any already identified. So step 2, I'm thinking you may not be able to start with a lot of in-person students. It's going to probably take, a few weeks maybe. So I'm just wondering about that. The other thing on step 2, it says face coverings worn at all times and for K2 students. This is not, I know this is not part of the governor's mandatory orders or the CDE orders. They're saying encouraged, but not mandatory. I've worked a lot with first graders and second graders and not very few kindergartners, but I just think that's awfully early for mandatory at kindergarten too. And I'm wondering if we can change that maybe to optional or encourage. Kay, you have more experience with kindergarten first, second than I do, but okay. So those are my feelings about that. And then the other thing that I am curious about, and that Barry, you spoke to a little bit, is the move to step 3. If I'm looking at the matrix and if I go line by line, the items, so you addressed about the ventilation and the filtration systems and hand washing stations are not, you're still working on that. Do you have a timeline for that? And I know you may not have it in concrete, but if you can give us an idea when you think those will be in place. And when I'm looking at the second item, it says no new cases in the student learning hubs, children or adults in immediate household for 14 consecutive days. We may meet that pretty soon if we stay off the watch list and, if we're, doing all we can to keep the kids safe and our staff. But so I'm thinking that one might not be too hard to meet. And then the additional face coverings we need to wait for. I don't know if we have money to buy some. And then you can probably see, I'm just wondering, do you think it would be possible to move to step 3, maybe after 6 to 8 weeks of school? I've been taking a lot of webinars from CSBA and Johns Hopkins University and the CDE, and everyone and the epidemiologists are saying the risk is for schools is adult to adult. And that is where the risk will be. And of course, your K2 to K4 students, the COVID is not as, how can I say, easily transferred to or exposed to adults. I'm happy to see that we will start at least at step 2. I thought perhaps we would be starting at step 3 from our prior discussions. I totally understand where the teachers and staff are coming from, having taught myself for many, many years. I understand that this is uncharted territory, but I am so concerned about learning loss. The kids who are struggling they're going to lose a lot of, I see a widening of the academic achievement gap. So I want to support the teachers, the staff, in however they want to approach this, but my goal is to, as a board member, is try to get to step 3 as safely and as quickly as we can. And, we aren't on, our county is not on the watch list. And we are, we may be at 100 in another month. But we do have a county the size of Connecticut. So anyway, and I want to thank you. But Barry, if you can kind of update us on these items. that I just brought up.
Thank you. I can speak
Thank
to
you.
some of those right now. Feel free to ask clarifying questions. Yeah, certainly the student learning hubs. That's a new kind of a concept, and so we're still going to be fleshing those out. And yeah, there may not be a student participating in a student learning hub on right away on day one. However, that's part of the work is to identify which teachers are willing to spend some of their time in that learning hub. What could that look like? Which families are interested of those groups? Those potentially at-risk groups are willing to have their children participate in a learning hub. It's not taking for granted that a family may say, okay, thank you for the invitation, but we would like you to meet our child's needs through distance because of the safety issues, and we're concerned, and we stand ready to do that. So that's going to be a piece of it, and certainly identifying those Title I students, identifying where they're at, and identifying any new students that might need to be part of the caseload is going to be a big job for the Title I teachers.
Yeah.
And we will be we'll be starting those discussions. I'm sure they're already thinking on those lines. The good news about stage 2 is that we could potentially do some of that testing in person. With Title I teachers, for instance. And also it opens up for some in-person assessments for IEPs as well, because we could potentially have some of that in-person contact that we didn't have before. So assessing the students is definitely going to be a big piece and a part of this plan that still needs to be fleshed out further. When you mention face coverings, those also include face shields. And so for some of those younger students, if they demonstrate they just cannot or are too uncomfortable or stuff like that, a face shield could potentially be an option. Although we want to encourage mask wearing. Face shields could be an option, and that's what Boys and Girls Club is doing right now with students. They're requiring all of the students to either wear a mask or a face shield, and the students have been able to decorate their face shields and make them their own. But they're being able to do that. Also, face shields for some of those teachers who are working with those younger students, where the students need to see the teacher's mouth in formulating some of the sounds or different things like that. Face shields are an option, for the staff as well, and we'll continue to flesh out those plans. So it's not so much face masks as it is face coverings that we're talking about.
Okay.
And there are still, and again, this is across the whole state, there are exceptions for those face masks. If a student is unable to wear it, is unable to remove it on their own, has mental health concerns that would keep them from wearing it, there are all kinds of exceptions to that we would be able to work with families on. But again, with children children over 2 all across the state wearing face masks while out in public, it makes sense from our perspective to have that face coverings be something as far as our timeline. The timeline for filters and filters and what was it? Well, washing stations. I couldn't read my own writing. I was writing quickly. I'm looking at starting procuring those, looking at it even this week. Potentially to see what we can look at along those lines. So we already have vendors identified. We're being inundated with people saying, hey, we have this for you, we have that for you. And so starting those conversations even this week and starting to procure some of those items is what we're looking at for sure. If we start in a step 2, we're not going to be overwhelmed with the need for hand washing stations. So that kind of alleviates that, in case the hand washing station manufacturers are being totally overrun, it buys us some time to be able to provide more places for students to wash their hands. Step 3, movement in 6 to 8 weeks. I totally agree. You heard me say 4 to 6 weeks, that let's at least see and watch. That aligns right along with that same timeline. You're looking, within that first quarter, if you will, at potentially for moving forward. And you heard the teachers themselves say that they want to get to in-person learning as quickly and critically as safely as possible. And so absolutely taking a look at that. You had mentioned those 14 days, of no spread within the school community is a pretty easy thing to meet. I would agree. And that's why that in that step 2, it talks about the board and the superintendent working in concert with public health officials in making that move to step 3. That's all of our goal, is to move to step 3 and of course even into step 4 as soon as we can. But I would again advocate, there's going to be a lot of schools that are again hitting this a little more aggressively than we're proposing, and there's going to be data that comes out, and they're either going to be 6 to 8 weeks in it going, wow, great, it was great, and we can learn lessons from how they did it. Or we're going to see, much like those states that rushed to reopen, we may see districts who got out in front that are having to, potentially, go to more of a distance learning, and because they have outbreaks either within the student population or their staff population. One thing I failed to mention earlier, another concern that we have in our county that separates us from other counties, is our severe lack of substitutes, both in teachers' aides and in teachers. And that is something that we need to consider as well, that falls well within the step 2 guidance, is let's make sure that we don't have, 4, 5, 6 teachers suddenly that are in quarantine and having no choice but to do distance learning, not even being able to participate in the learning hubs. That is unique to our county and something that could severely impact our ability to provide and more quickly move to a step where we have those teachers in the classroom with more students.
Barry, I want to say something. This meeting is crashing. I'm seeing a lot of pictures of ceilings, outdoor views. Nancy has been in and out about 15 times on my screen, and I figure she's probably pretty well trying to stay there. But no, this, like I say, I'm seeing photos of not people in them, So this meeting is kind of coming unglued.
I would disagree. We still have 69 people on board. Many people are muted their cameras, so you don't see them, but they're still here in the meeting. We have 69 participants.
I've seen a lot of comments being written in the corner.
I am too.
Yeah.
So going on, Nancy or Bob or John, do you have any comments to the discussion at hand with this 4-step school reopening document?
Sure, it's a good work in progress. I'm sure we're going to be, it's a good work in progress. I'm sure we're going to be looking at this continually and making fine tuning and adjustments as we go. I appreciate the good work that was done here.
Thank you, Bob. Nancy or John, do you have any questions for Barry or comments?
No, not on that item, but I will have comments for items for next meeting.
Okay.
Sure. I do want to reference, there are a number of questions people have of some of the things Barry said in the chat, so I hope you come back to that. I also want to acknowledge that this has, the last couple of weeks, I know how many conversations that Barry and all of us have been having with each other around this. So I just want to say thank you for that, because what that builds is our collective will in this choice and how we're going to decide to move forward. And unfortunately, there's no way to 100% appeal to each point. And it is such a complex and convoluted moment in time, and for learning, and for our kids, and for us. So I just really want to acknowledge that, and appreciate also how we pulled together some format that has some steps that we can hold ourselves accountable to. I'm not sure how the end of this conversation is going to go. I too thought we were headed towards something that was a bit of a hybrid, so that we were spreading out our efforts. And I have confidence, I have been asking, but I have confidence that we'll end up with safety precautions that can meet that. And if not, we'll know right away. Barry's been very clear about that. Like, for example, the PPE. And I happen to know that some of the PPE for businesses, not for the schools, is here. So that could also possibly help in the interim if our shipment doesn't come.
So,
Barry,
you have a question.
Wait, John, it's Nancy still speaking.
I think those are my thoughts. That's not my stance. Those are my thoughts right now. One last thing, I would really like to acknowledge all the teachers. You've been very clear about your comfort levels, and you've been expressing your situations, as the parents have been too. So I think those will be my comments for now.
Okay, John.
Yeah, so Barry, I'm curious, have we received any information at all from County Health about, have they given us any information on how many local cases we have? I know I spoke with a county supervisor last week, and they are very frustrated that they cannot get the information. They have even requested that the county be broken into quadrants and just get the information. How many, northwest, northeast, southwest, southeast cases, not asking names, addresses or anything like that. Is county giving us any information to help us base our decisions for this school district?
Not broken down by the county in quadrants, like you say, or even in half the county. And we have pushed as superintendents all across the county for that information, just like you said, the supervisor did.
Yeah, I know county supervisors, well, according to the one I spoke with, were very frustrated. The county health would not give just that simple information. There again, we're not asking for who, where, no addresses, no names, no anything like that, but just give us an idea. Tell us where the fire's burning is what we kind of want to know. So, but anyway, county health apparently won't even do that. So anyway, I was just curious. I wanted to be to ask you that if we had any more information from the county. Better direction.
We'll continue to push for that for sure, as superintendents all across the county, who would certainly be helpful.
Yes.
Okay, well, I would like to give my comments. And John, it is absolutely frustrating to me that we have, 54, I think, today, or 55. I don't know, I can't remember right off the top of my head, but a lot is going up in our county, and they could all be in Happy Camp, in which case I would just be wanting to open up. But they could all be here in Mount 53, I'm seeing, and they could all be here in Mount Shasta. And so, you act differently. And so the things I want to say is, I want to address the parents' things. Those really breaks my heart to hear some of their comments. But first, before that, I'd like to say that I was watching a news show where a foreign epidemiologist, foreign countries epidemiologist, chief epidemiologist, who was practically in tears, said, "You taught us what to do, and now you can't do it for yourself." And that sums all of this up. Where is the science data that's making this for us? We ourselves are making this school reopening plan. I'm not an epidemiologist. You're not an epidemiologist. We're having to scramble and read everything we can. Where is the guidance that we need? It is absolutely frustrating to me. Along that line, I've done a lot of research. I do want people to understand where this number of 14 days decline has come from. 14 days represents a long period of time that you can, once you're exposed, you can show up with the case. You can actually get it within 2 days, or you can show up with it in plus 14. It can be, it's rare, but plus 14 days. But the average is by 14 days. So why is that a concern? Well, if you have 14 days of decline, then that means your transmission rate is less than 1. And that is the break number for not growing a hotspot. So if I get COVID and I give it to 2 people, the numbers in Mount Shasta are going to grow. If I get COVID and I give it to one person or no people, the numbers are going to decline. And that's why they say 14 days of declining. And it's really crucial that we as a school district keep our numbers below 1. So we don't have more kids. And with the right to privacy, that makes sense when you have a small community like Gazelle, but it does not make sense when you have an area like our town, which is so many people could be sick and nobody knows about it. The other concern that I have, and this goes to the parents' concerns, I'm sitting here in school at Sisson to meet with you because I live where I don't have good satellite. In fact, it's gotten worse in the last 3 or 4 weeks, and I can barely get anything. So I totally understand when a parent says, I've got several kids and I can't get them all online, or I don't have internet, or it's buffering. I know about buffering. Buffering means you click in and then all of a sudden, instead of seeing something, you get this round and around circle. So that is a real problem for parents. We need to address that issue. And even more important, we need to address is the working parents. Parents who are, one of them's a first responder, or they're both working, or if they aren't working, they're going to lose their jobs. I mean, we need to solve that issue. New York had a problem. They really shut down. They shut down hard, but they needed their essential nurses and doctors who had children. So they solved that issue with daycares, and they were daycares that really addressed the safety issue. We have a daycare in town that addressed the safety issues for the nurses and doctors at our hospital, and children of those people were going there, and they didn't have any cases. So I think we really need to address what we're going to do for the parents who really need the help, because that has got to be just the worst thing, to be you need to pay your bills in order to continue to live here, to put food on the table. And if you're not working, you're not paying your bills and you're not getting food for your kids. And yet your kids can't go. We are not just a daycare. We are educating children, but we need to find some sort of system. And so that brings up the Boys and Girls Club. I don't know what's happening with that. So I need that to be addressed. And the other point that I want to make is we are seeing parts of this country really going through the roof with COVID-19. COVID-19 has long-term effects for even young people in their 20s who run marathons, and then they suddenly get it and they've been sick for 3 months and they still can't. When they talk on a Zoom meeting or whatever, a WebEx, they are out of breath 3-4 months after they've had it. It pulls in your lungs. It causes problems with your heart. It causes problems with your kidneys, causes brain damage. It affects all parts of your body. People have had amputations because of the clots. So it has a lot of effect. And because it's a novel virus, doesn't mean that it's not going to affect children. I really have a sit and wait and watch to see if what the effects are going to be on children under 10. Hopefully it's not. Hopefully it's not. But it's a novel virus. We don't know, if these are just midterm, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months to get well again, or whether it's lifetime. And so my concern is we've got to balance If somebody, one of the parents said a cost benefit analysis. And I've actually seen that presented. And if you lower the standards for going back into opening things up, that increases the economic capacity, supposedly, or the education capacity in a school, but you increase the death rate. Well, we're so small, we haven't had any death rates, thank goodness. That doesn't mean it won't happen here. On the other side, if you stay very conservative and you lock down economically, you have a high economic or a high education problem and low death. So there is this sort of finding the balance point that we need to find. I think we can find some of these if we listen to our parents, find a solution for our working parents. I agree. I think getting data from other districts who are out there in front, being much more cautious and conservative. I don't want Mount Shasta Union School District to be the source of a major outbreak for Mount Shasta, the community of Mount Shasta. And that is possible. So those are my comments. I throw it back to any other board members or Barry if he wants to address anything.
You had mentioned a question about Boys and Girls Club. I wanted to flesh that out a little bit. I've been working with their director. We've been in contact nearly daily at this point, so I can take lessons learned from what they're doing, but then also so that they can keep track and he can keep his board updated on the progress. Their board has voted to partner with us. Whatever choice we plan to do, they want to provide as much support to the community. My understanding is that they voted to continue their summertime footing into this distance learning time. So to operate Boys and Girls Club to operate from 8 till 4 every day, and actually to partner with us. I've already shared with them the state's mandate for distance learning so that they stand ready to help those students with those 230, 240 minutes of instruction that are going to be required for us to be able to take attendance for those students every day. They're already looking to partner with our teachers on helping make that happen for those students that attend Boys and Girls Club. I know that they're looking at expanding their physical area so that they're not just at Sisson. We've been talking together with them about reaching out to other organizations, whether it's the parish hall that's closer to MSE, whether it's even parts of MSE, for instance. Again, we're still in talks and negotiations for what that could look like. But Boys and Girls Club has been very receptive and open, and they hear the call to needing to be able to provide a place for students to go for our working families and for all of our families. And so I continue to keep in, like I said, almost daily contact with the Boys and Girls Club director, and I appreciate their board and I appreciate their leadership and their staff for being willing to step up to not only just provide a place for students to go, but for how willing they are to partner with the school district in helping those students meet those academic benchmarks each day. And so that's what I would add about Boys and Girls Club.
Could I ask you, how would we get this information out about the possibility of Boys and Girls Club to the parents who are not on this meeting right now? How can we get that information out to them so that they are aware of it?
Absolutely, utilizing the newspaper, flyers around, just a kind of a media blitz of getting this information out to families, when they are, so that they know that this is a possibility and it may happen. The Boys and Girls Club is looking at even expanding, to other age levels potentially. So there's a lot going on, a lot of movement going on. And again, I commend their board and their staff for really leaning into this moment, to use the governor's terminology.
Great, thank you. That sounds really good. Is there any way we can work to solve the internet connection for the parents who have more than a couple of kids who are don't have the good internet?
Yeah, not only that, but also working. I want to touch on us being able to work with families that don't have internet connectivity. That is still something the state is looking at providing. We are expecting hotspots to be delivered to us, and we're being proactive in looking for those. None of the schools in Siskiyou County have gotten those that they ordered in the spring when those were being made available. We put in for our orders. We haven't received those yet, and so we're being very proactive in going, okay, let's get those, and working even with and saying, you know what, let's not even wait for that. Let's focus. We have partners, wireless partners here in town that we can start working with. And we started that effort this week to even expand how we're doing that. As far as working with families who may have connectivity issues or multiple students that are aren't able to log in synchronously with teachers, that's going to be our task as administrators and teachers, is to work with our families, to reach out to them, to find out how is this going for you? And the families give those teachers that feedback of, this isn't working for me right now. Then how can we pivot to allow for that to happen? And it could be where potentially some of those families, because again, one of those the students' access to the student learning hubs is students who are really struggling with the distance learning piece. That's still remains an open door that's not, again, available to 80% of the students in California, because they don't even have that in-person option that we're looking at with those student learning hubs. So to partner with those families and work with them, maybe it's a more one-on-one time, maybe it's time with the teacher that's not part of with the class, where they can have that time with the teacher or an aide. There's going to be all kinds of ways for us to help and meet the needs. Those needs are going to vary, hugely. And so for us to meet those, person by person, case by case, and to make sure that we're providing what those families expect is going to be our goal.
Great. Thank you. I saw one comment that came through that Boys and Girls Clubs are not credentialed teachers. They're not. This is just a discussion about addressing daycare for working parents and first responders who are essential workers. As far as that goes, is there any other board questions or comments, or are you ready to make a decision on this this plan?
I can make a motion. I don't know if other board members are ready to make a decision tonight, but I
Are
think
other
our
board members
parents
ready to make a decision?
and our
Thumbs up
staff
if you are.
clarity.
Okay, Nancy, I don't see a thumb up if you are ready to make a decision tonight or not.
Right, I'm sorry, I was looking at the plan and wondering if there isn't, I know that we want to make a choice because we need to organize around it and move forward. I'm just wondering if there's any more information that we want. There have been questions to ask for more input. Maybe we might want to address that. I was lost in thought on that. I don't know.
Well, one thing is that Barry did say that
We
the
have to make a
document is
choice.
subject to change. And I
Excuse
think
me.
it may change because the COVID is going to be in control of this.
Right.
So I'm going to make a motion that we adopt the MSUSD four-step school reopening plan, and knowing that this document and plan may be subject to change.
Do I have a second?
Mona, would you, before you ask for a second, Mona, would you entertain adjusting your motion to affirm that we will start in step two?
Yes, and we will start at step 2. Thank you, Barry.
Okay, so
Second.
do I have any second?
Second.
Bob Winston seconded.
Bob Winston, second. Thank you. All in favor, show me with thumbs up or down. Looks like the motion carries. It's unanimous. And I see the question, when would school start again? I could let you address that piece. And then I have one comment about
August 24 is the school start date.
official school start date, August 24. Thank you. A study came out today, and it was saying that it's really important. I passed that to Barry and I think Mona, maybe others might be interested in it, and he can forward it out. But it was re-emphasizing 3 things that have been found to be very beneficial in keeping numbers slow. And it's what we've been hearing, but our community is not doing it. I've been driving around and watching, and people are not doing it. And so we really need, I'm happy to hear that the Cheryl in her report was talking about teachers writing letters and doing all these different activities to get the word out. It's wear a mask, wash your hands frequently, and maintain distance. Those have been proven to work in countries that have brought the COVID-19 to its knees, and they're back in full, if not completely open, they're on their way to being fully open. And it's those 3 things. So I just would like to really encourage everyone to practice those 3 things and encourage other people to do it so that we can go back to fully open sooner.
I have a comment.
Okay.
I just want to say,
Okay, just a point of order. Okay, just a point of order. Mona, hang on just a second. We acted on number 5, and we're having some board comments, which is number 9. Do we want to look at number 8 officially and then go to number 9 so we can maintain?
Okay, thank you, Barry. Thank you, Barry. Item number 8, items for next meeting. I think John said he had some.
Yeah, I'd like us to have a discussion on creation of our agendas. I mean, who's doing that? I know CSBA trains us that the superintendent and the board president should meet and confer and create the agenda. I don't know if we guys do that, but I'd like some clarification and just an update on that.
We do.
Okay.
Well, I second that because I wonder if we don't want to rearrange some of our most important, so that the agenda reflects our most important discussions first.
We can do that.
So I concur, John.
Discussion item.
Okay, great. Thank you. Anything else? John, did you have any other suggestions?
No, that's good. That sounds good. We can build on that.
Okay, any other ones for items for next meeting?
Well, since Mona and I were hoping this would be part of the legacy of the July 13th meeting, I hope to put the discussion item around the core principles for reopening discussion. Mona, we got to get a classy name for that.
Yes.
That pyramid.
Yeah.
Because there were points embedded in there. So the idea is to bring out some of those when appropriate along this timing.
Okay, great. And then now item number 9, board comments.
I have a comment. I want to just let everyone know that having student learning hubs is a very innovative, cutting edge program. And I'm very proud of our district and Barry and our staff for taking this on. This is a huge modification for these kids. And there are very few school districts that are offering this. And even if they could offer it, there was only one school district in the Bay Area that was offering this. And so for our district to offer this to these children are struggling learners and those that need extra help will have it. And we can kind of jumpstart them. And I'm very pleased to see that.
Yeah, I have a comment.
Okay, John?
I appreciate Barry and our teaching staff and our classified staff and our parents in meeting and conferring with him and sharing ideas and concerns. I'm sure Barry's had a huge workload lately, and I just want to know I appreciate all of those involved.
Thank you, John. I concur.
Yeah, ditto, John. I'll take your wisdom, your practice. Ditto. And I would, somebody asked earlier in the chat, as far as I know, we didn't really address it, but in our communications about this choice and how we will communicate with parents and our community over time, I think it'd be really important to remind everybody how we're doing that, offer as many specifics as we can, and also the clarification about how we move to step 3. So not the items that are listed here, but is that another, does that have to come at a board meeting? Can that come at the discretion of the superintendent's suggestion? I think it would be great to clarify that so people can know where to expect that communication from. Well, moving, I would say, I guess, moving any direction, since we don't know certain things.
Good.
Does that make
Thank
sense?
you. That makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much for thinking of it. Okay, well, unless there are any other board comments, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I so move.
Second.
And John second. So meeting is adjourned. Bang, bang. And that would be 9:36 p.m. I would like to thank everybody who's attended. I appreciate your comments and staying with us and helping us as we move forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you. See you guys next
Thank
month.
you, everyone.
Bye.
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 Thank you to all the people writing thank yous.
87, that's got to be a record.
It is, I'm sure.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. I really appreciate all the parents